Oh boy, am I excited. When I heard news today that the revised chapter tactics were posted, I was actually in the middle of a game, and funnily enough, I was taking the Salamanders out for a spin. Now, I'm not usually one for making reaction videos to news and announcements, but this feels special. It's probably in part because I made a 1-hour video on this topic, so I feel justified in saying that I am at least somewhat passionate about the rules representations for our first founding chapters. When I normally make my videos, it takes me quite a bit of time, but I thought this one would benefit from being released sooner rather than later. So, in order to execute this, things are going to be a bit rougher around the edges. So, many apologies on the audio quality. This one is going to be my thoughts on these new chapter tactics. I'll try to make it as substantive as possible, and maybe do a little compare and contrast against the original asks I outlined from my previous video. Here we go. Alright, we're doing it live. Okay, so up here I have the Warhammer Community Preview page, and on the right I have some images of the chapter tactic suggestions I had in my previous video, so that'll be interesting for comparison's sake. First up are the Crimson Fists, and oh, look at this sweet new photography. Look, you have the new Dreadnought there, that's pretty cool. Anyways, okay, so Crimson Fists are the first ones we're being previewed. When resolving an attack made by model with this tactic, that contains at least 5 or more, so that's not double, so that's substantial. That means you can probably better manipulate it in your favor as you're depleting models from enemy hordes. And you add 1 to the roll for the purpose of this tactic. Vehicle model with this tactic counts as 5. Yep, so it's actually strikingly similar to what I was suggesting. Well, actually, I was just suggesting something logical here, if I'm honest, and nothing too out of the ordinary. Always felt the Crimson Fist toolkit, as previewed in the White Dwarf, was pretty decent, like especially in comparison to where most of the chapters were situated. So this is actually very pleasant. And lastly, we have, in addition, hit rolls of 6, natural hit rolls of 6, scores an additional hit. That's pretty huge. We all know how good Tesla is. I mean, it isn't 3 times, it's 2 times, but it's still way better than nothing. And with Bolter Drill, you're more likely to get those 6s to occur, and even more so for a Crimson Fist than an Imperial Fist, because they can add 1 to hit rolls, which would make Bolter Drill trigger, on 5s and 6s. So you're getting more rolls, which can potentially score more 6s. Pretty tasty. Definitely an upgrade overall. Before we leave, how this would affect vehicles, I mean, well, we can see here, I mean, you know, you could have vehicles with Hurricane Bolters that would be able to make great use of this chapter tactic. Absolutely. Okay, moving on. Oh, before we get to Black Templars, we have a Stalker Bolt Rifle stat increase that's being showcased here. Yeah, this isn't a chapter tactic, but it's in the article, so we might as well provide some insight towards it. The key quality here, I believe, the only thing different is the increase in damage. And I think this is good, because honestly, like if you've seen my What's the Deal with videos, I've covered a few Primaris units, mainly aggressors. Come to mind where I was like, wow, these options are pointless, and I could probably have made a similar argument for intercessors as well, as the rapid fire variant is just definitively the best. But this is a bit interesting, and it makes me kind of want to consider for my salamanders even, you know, using aggressors and redemptors for my anti-horde, and then probably using these as troop choices, which can sit back and, you know, using artisan weapons, we can try and get this sweet AP -2 and 2 damage flat to slip through. Anyways, let's go to Black Templars. Alright. Praise be, this is really good. Let me pull up what I had here. Essentially, the first part that was upgraded, which was the core component of the tactic, which was rerolling failed charge rolls, that should have been made similar to the Orcs Here We Go. That's what I was always saying. So I'm really glad to see that change implemented here, because it's just, that's all they had. They really should be able to at least use it in the one phase, in the one circumstance that you can use it. But they got an additional ability, totally different from what I was asking, no, not asking, but, you know, suggesting, which is a little out of the box. I haven't really seen this mechanic. I can't recall that it exists in the game, but instead, what we have here as an official solution is we have a Feel No Pain against mortal wounds, and a 5-up Feel No Pain, so that's pretty, I mean, that's pretty legit. It's like 33%, right? It's definitely fluffy. Like, I mean, I think they make a point to say that here. And this is a little weird. I don't know if it makes if it makes disembarking from these vehicles no problem at all. I mean, it'll be helpful, but you know what? We also don't know what else this toolkit is comprised of. Like, if all these chapters are getting those codex supplements, we'll have to wait and see. So maybe they can. Maybe they'll have some sweet way to maximize their transport capacity or efficiency. Okay, let's scroll on from the left. Oh yeah, this would work on vehicles as well. So I mean, it's pretty useful for what it is. Most vehicles don't want to charge. Oh, the only Space Marine vehicles that would want to charge would have been Dreadnoughts. So, and they were always eligible. So it doesn't do a whole lot for vehicles, but it's a nice layer, I think. Right? We'll save you some CP for Armor of Contempt. That's kind of nice. Okay, next up we have Imperial Fists. Let's pull up my reference. What was I suggesting? I was suggesting... subtract 1 from charge rolls if you suffer wounds from Overwatch. So here we have... The core part looks unchanged. Or enemies don't claim the benefit of cover, from attacks made by your units. And here we have an additional add-on similar... It's in keeping with what we have on the Crimson Fist, which it's appropriate. I mean, actually, when you think about the seismic devastation from that Siegebreaker cohort, this is really gross, because now you're getting more shots and more wound rolls of 6s, which can trigger more mortal wounds. I always thought that was a really strong specialist attachment for the Imperial Fists, which is great, and this kind of adds another layer to that combo, I guess. How this affects vehicles, I mean, the same way it would affect the Crimson Fists, really. But the first part has a really... Actually, this is really beneficial. I think this is underrated, this chapter tactic. And in combination with this, I think it's situated pretty good. Definitely an upgrade, obviously. I guess time will tell how beneficial it'll be with a codex supplement and the additional tools that get added in. Where are we next? Ultramarines. Right, so... whoops, spoilers. Okay, yes, I didn't have an advocation for the Ultramarines in my original video, and that's because I thought, and it seems GW has the same opinion, that they're just fine. Really, really good chapter tactic, beginner friendly, very forgiving, and an awesome complement of unique characters, like absurdly good. I mean, Tigurius and Gilliman alone are just game changers to any list. And now they'll be able to benefit from their vehicles too. I mean, the new stuff for pulsers, they have fly anyways, but if you're doing anything classic, you would be able to fall back and shoot, which is, I mean, that's a huge deal. White Scars. Okay. Here we are with the White Scars. So it's actually pretty different than what I was suggesting. I was like really off the mark here. But my intent was to suggest a ruling that would enhance their ability to get into combat and leverage the mobility, leverage the power mobility brings to your units, right? And they approached it from a different angle, but I really like what we have here. Units with this tactic can charge in a turn in which they advanced or fallen back. So before, they've lost the additional boost to their advanced distance, but they can now advance when they charge as well as falling back. And I think that's huge. This is part of the reason why, in my opinion, Orcs and High Fleet Kraken are so dominant, and quite honestly just powerful. When you execute melee correctly, you're just in such a powerful position. Your enemy is essentially responding to what you've just done, and they're forced to go into this reactionary mode after you finish combat on your turn. It's extremely powerful, and I think enabling the White Scars with this, just advancing and charging alone, is gonna... I think they can be potentially just as good, and we have yet to see what the rest of that toolkit really is gonna enable them to do as well. And we have in addition, but the in addition segment that's been added in only works for bikers, which I can appreciate from the White Scars fluff perspective. They can shoot heavy weapons and advance and fire assault weapons without penalty, which is really cool, because now attack bikes can be somewhat, it's good. I'm going to say it's good, because now this chapter tactic is encouraging unique unit choices for the White Scars, with I guess bikers in general that would apply for, but specifically attack bikes, because I can't think of any faction whose rules are really encouraging attack bikes. Okay, how this is going to affect vehicles. I mean, I guess you could advance and charge your dreadnoughts, which is something. Dreadnoughts aren't particularly fast, but it'd be pretty funny to see a dreadnought advance 12 and charge. Okay, let's move on. We have Raven Guard. Okay, so yeah, I'll admit this is a little verbose, maybe more so than a little, but my intent behind that suggestion was, like, -1 to hit is such a powerful trait to just innately have, and it was the easiest to leverage because it was your enemy dependent. You just had the position further away, and you had the strongest advantage, and I also didn't want to upset people by taking it away. But I'm kind of happy GW did. They kind of did take it away, in part, right? So if you're 12 inches away from your enemies, your Raven Guard units are treated as if they're in cover, which is nice, and it kind of makes sense to their fluff. And if they're a vehicle, if they're not a vehicle and entirely on or within a terrain feature, you subtract 1 from the hit roll as it used to be known. So you kind of are able to get it back for your infantry. Your flyers have their own -1 to hit, so it's kind of like nothing lost from that perspective, but the use of dreadnoughts being used from long range as firing platforms has been really hurt. Unless we see some sort of relic or stratagem, it seems like that combo or playstyle, or I guess style of list is a better way to put it, might be dead in the water, which is kind of a bummer because I really like part of that. I just didn't like how it was being so abused. It's like not fighting at all, just standing back and shooting. But we'll see. We'll see what the stratagems and relics are. We might have some way to provide a -1 to hit, like a lightning fast reaction style, where you select a single unit and get that buff. Okay, that's a sweet photography. Oh yeah, Inceptors, right? They just drop down into ruins like that and get the -1 to hit, which is not too bad. Alright, Salamanders. What was I suggesting? Yes. So I was suggesting a nice little layer, because I acknowledged in my original video that this chapter tactic is good. I don't want to feel like I'm complaining for the Salamanders, because I understand that we were one of the better off legions in the original codex. But I was just suggesting it'd be nice if we could have more, like, if our flamers behaved as if they're mastercrafted, which we didn't get here. But I could totally see a stratagem or some synergy in that codex supplement offering that feature, because it'd be nice if you could make I really want to make my Salamanders work with flamers, guys. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'll say on that issue. So it looks like it's totally unchanged. We roll a single hit roll and wound roll, and they specify Overwatch here, so the wording's slightly different if I recall correctly, but it seems like it's not any less limited. I often use the Space Marine banner, the Ancient, to get the reroll. It's chosen to shoot with or fight with, and I'm pretty sure the Ancient counts as a shooting or fighting action. So I don't see any wording conflicts here for the use of the artisan weapon rerolls. But what's really cool is we get a nice little layer that we can ignore -1 AP weapons. I mean, -2 AP is still -2, but -1 becomes 0, which is, I think that'll definitely help you get things up the board within the flamer range, and even like playing Salamanders as is, it's still a win, right? You're just another little perk for free. That's pretty sweet. Can't complain. Is this a new photography? I think maybe I've seen this one in the community before. Can't remember. Alright, Iron Hands. This one is, it's really special to me because I felt so bad for the 10th Legion players with that original codex. Like, just the worst chapter tactic. The relic was whatever, the stratagem was kind of okay, maybe, and no special characters at all. Which it looks like it's going to change, but that's not what this video is about. So, I was suggesting just give them the chance to have a 5-up Feel No Pain on units that already had the 6-up, so it's not like you'd gain some synergy, is what I was basically aiming for with this adjusted trait. But instead what we got is the original trait is intact, which is a 6-up Fill Pain. And they got quite a bit of supplementing here, which is really nice to see, giving me those warm fuzzies. Yeah, so Overwatch attacks are scored on hit rolls of 5s or 6s, which is pretty neat. I didn't expect that, right? I didn't anyways. And in addition, a model with this tactic that has a damage table are considered to have double the number of wounds remaining. That's beautiful. Like, I was suggesting this for a stratagem, or I believe, or excuse me, I was thinking of this as like a supplemental combo, but they've built it right in, which is awesome, because now we have the Legion that's known for fielding tanks and armored units and mass can now actually do that to a better efficiency than any other of the chapters we have seen thus far. Which feels so... I'm actually kind of happy. Oh yeah, that's it. Let's see what it says here. Oh, grab a start collecting. Is there a new start collecting? What's going on here? Oh my god, this is an old one. Whatever. Good luck. I mean, if you want that. If you want this, go buy it, but whatever. Okay, so that wraps up my thoughts on these new Space Marine chapter tactics. It's weird. I feel like I'm glowing with enthusiasm over this. I'm so happy to see some better representation for those previously underwhelming chapter tactics. Part of the reason I made my 1 hour fixing the Legion's analysis was that I couldn't help but empathize with my fellow battle brothers out there, who probably felt shafted by poor rules writing, which treated their beloved Legions with blatant disregard. But now it looks like things are changing for the better, and I'm eager to see what's to come. Thanks for watching, guys. So, are you guys excited as I am? Where are my Black Templar, White Scars, and Iron Hands players? Because I'd like to hear from you. Jokes aside, I would welcome the comments from any of my fellow battle brothers out there. I hope with this video I was able to bring an interesting perspective to this very exciting news. Thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you guys in the next one.